I'm learning how to say no. Been practicing ways, saying it deliberate and slow. I'm learning how.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to what's being tentatively known for this podcast now as This Week in Gaming. My name is Kevin Harrison, and today with my co-host that I have over Skype.
Hey, I'm DJ.
And we're here to talk to you about the most recent developments in gaming this week. And there's been quite a bit going on, especially for the month of June. Wouldn't you say, DJ?
Yeah, I'd say quite a bit.
Yeah, considering usually most summer schedules we don't see a lot of game releases or anything like that, but there's been a lot on the downloadable front and a lot of good stuff for news. So the first thing we're going to talk about mainly has to do that Valve is in the news a lot this week. They got a lot of stuff going on. Probably first and most interesting to a lot of people that is this leaked artwork for Episode 3, for people that don't know, for Half-Life 2, Episode 3, expansion or episode of Half-Life 2 that gamers have been waiting for, I think it's like 4 or 5 years now, wouldn't you say?
Almost about. Yeah, it's certainly been a while, and it's almost become a joke now that Half-Life 3, that Valve can't count to 3. Nothing 3 related will ever be released by them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like on the level of Duke Nukem Forever or anything like that, but I mean, the new source engine is only getting older as weeks pass by, and it's just, if you're gonna keep everything in the engine for Episode 3, and Half-Life Episode 2 kept everybody, on the edge, pretty much waiting for the third part.
Yeah, a lot of people were thinking that instead of doing Episode 3, they were just going to skip to Half-Life 3 with an upgraded engine and just to make it look cleaner, more modern.
Yeah, but I mean, what we can see though from some of this artwork that's been leaked that supposedly has been dated back to 2008 is that it looks like, Valve have been working at least on some conceptual stuff. And there was some other artwork that was shown in E3 a while ago, like years ago, I want to say, of like a silhouette of Freeman holding up a crowbar against one of the antagonists of the game. But this artwork's interesting because we see the downed helicopter in a snowy landscape, which end of Episode 2 ends with a helicopter, and all these like redesigned models of one of gaming's favorite heroines, Alex Vance. So did you get a chance to look through all the artwork, or?
I looked through some of it. I mean, it certainly does look good, which would definitely point to that it's certainly possible that these aren't fakes. If they are fakes, they're certainly convincing ones. Mm-hmm. But overall, yeah, I'd say I was pretty impressed by them, and it wouldn't surprise me that they're still working out, at least on concept art, especially since, like you said, they showed off a few images a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. So, if supposedly Episode 3 was, a real thing, and is going to come out on this, on these PCs and this console generation, do you think it would be downloadable content for the orange box, or they would do maybe standalone DLC for consoles? What do you think would happen?
I don't think it would be DLC. I think it would probably be its own release, and simply because, at least for certainly the consoles anyway, it doesn't really seem like Valve is supporting him. Mm-hmm. Last time I played Team Fortress 2 on the consoles, all the bugs were still there. They didn't really seem to be updating it. They're only updating the PC version, which is understandable. That's where the majority of their player base is for TF2.
So no hats for all you Xbox and PS3 users then.
Probably not, no.
Yeah. Well, we can only be optimistic, I guess, on this and hope that it actually comes out once they're done with Left 4 Dead and all their expansions and not League of Legends. What's the MOBA that they have. It's
The what, Dota 2?
oh yeah, Dota 2, which I'm pretty sure is still in beta, and I guess that's what they're really working on now. But that's not the only thing else that Valve was in the news for. Why don't you talk about what else they brought out this week?
Well, they finally released the last Meet the Character Class video, which I was certainly looking forward to. They've been slowly releasing those post TF2's release, and the last one, which they finally released this week, was Meet the Pyro.
And now, as I understand it, you're not a big fan of this one.
No, I didn't say I wasn't a big fan. I just thought it was really, really strange. And for anyone that's seen the video, I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It was out there.
Very My Little Pony-esque, as I think is what you called it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of become a joke because at some point in an interview, Gabe Newell admitted to watching My Little Pony, and it seemed like it kind of fit with this Meet the Pyro video. It was strange. I didn't hate it. It was weird. I don't really have any feelings about it one way or the other.
So, I mean, that's obviously very entertaining. Every Meet the Class has been really great to look at. Like, great animation and just pretty funny. My personal favorite was Meet the Spy and Meet the Medic. What about you?
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with Meet the Spy. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. But probably even more interesting, coming right along with Meet the Pyro, was actually an reveal of the software they've been using to put together all of these Meet the Class trailers, which is what they're calling the Source Filmmaker. And the fact that it was going to be released for free for everybody who's using Steam, and that they've started an open beta.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, especially the people that make those Gmod videos, just to name a few people specifically, Rubber Fruit, Funny Neon, and Kitty0706, I believe. I know they usually come out with Gmod video after Gmod video, and I'm sure this filmmaker software will greatly help them in making their videos.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what Gmod is, Gary Mod has been a long-standing program that came out shortly after Half-Life 2 that's mainly just been the sort of toy box for messing around with character models that are in the Source engine. And like the major way for making machinima that people that want to go within the Source engine is using Gary's mod and basically doing stop-motion animation through it. And when I look at there's like a 5-minute demo video talking about the Source Filmmaker. This looks like Gary's mod on crack. It's like that spliced with Final Cut Pro. It looks like a really powerful tool.
It certainly seems pretty interesting. I thought it was interesting how the people at Valve described it, whereas it was like filming a movie, but you do it in reverse. So first you could go in-game, actually move the characters around, and then you can stop, go back frame by frame, change them around, change their facial animations, and then clean it up, and it's finished.
Yeah. What it looked like was a real... Have you ever seen Red versus Blue, DJ?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, the filming process that it looked like was very similar to what Red versus Blue does. They set it up in an actual game and have people have their cues and marks, but then they go back over it with this program and put the laughing and the voice acting and the lip sync and all that. It just... I couldn't believe that it was all actual in-game things and not just close to what I imagined it was done like through Gary's mod or something similar to it.
Yeah, I thought it was especially neat when they showed how it worked, how they were showing the Meet the Scout video, and they paused it, and then they actually panned around, and they showed how you could change things in the trailer.
Yeah, and so, like I said, the beta is supposed to be going on very soon, and everybody also gets a working copy of the Meet the Heavy trailer, and you get to mess around with that. So I'm sure in the future, or very near future, we'll be seeing a lot of modified Meet the Heavies with all sorts of means, like non-cat or more ponies for you, DJ.
Goody.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
So, like I said, big news for Valve this week, which is great because we so rarely actually get to hear anything coming out of them. So let's go on with our next bit of news.
Right, the Halo 4 Spartan Ops.
So this is about the most detail that we've gotten from Spartan Ops since the original announcement that we got through the Frank O'Connor video with the talking about exactly what it's going to be. This was a sort of slideshow presentation that was captured from Microsoft's Expert Zone, which is some kind of portal that's only accessible to retail employees.
Yeah, and certainly something especially I remember you've been saying since they first announced Spartan Ops is it's certainly ambitious, and it still seems to be. In one slide in particular, they have it laid out that they are going to have 5 missions every week for 10 weeks.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder exactly what the extent of the missions are we going to be having. Are there going to be actual characters talking to us that are not like wearing helmets all the time with voice acting? Or is this like you're hearing it out of the speaker of your Pelican as you're being dropped on the multiplayer map, similar to the Mass Effect 3 missions, the N7 missions?
It seems like a combination of both. I do recall seeing one screenshot showed a few characters sitting in what looked like a drop ship, and one of them did have their helmet off. So I'm guessing that the Spartan that you create will be just inputted into the missions, and you can go up to, I believe, 4 people into a Spartan Ops mission. And it'll probably just be about as long as maybe a campaign mission, maybe half as long. But they pretty much advertised it as you're getting 2 free campaigns when you buy the game. You know, one's the Spartan Ops, and then one's the actual campaign with Master Chief.
So they've said that they're estimating at about 12 hours, more or less, for content. And I'm sure that's actually probably estimated at just playing through it normal. I'll bet trying to do these on legendary difficulty or something like that, or with some combination of skulls or something like that, will, you know, maybe do some unique rewards through it too. The other things in the slideshow that are interesting besides Spartan Ops, they talk about downloadable weapons, like there'll be 10 new weapons, 2 vehicles, and then there's some actual story kind of stuff on it. They're claiming like a real rival to the Master Chief now, something bigger than just the Arbiter, and let's see if I got this right, a new class of enemies called the Prometheans.
Yeah, they were described in the trailer at E3 as just being synthetics. I'm guessing that they're simply Forerunner type guardians, or perhaps maybe just servants of this other ancient enemy they keep talking about, although they do have Forerunner weapons.
So we're talking about the glowy enemies that we saw in the E3 2012 trailer. Those are what we're calling the quote-unquote Prometheans then?
Yes.
Kind of an odd name given the timing. I guess nobody will actually remember Prometheus when it comes around in the fall and Halo 4 actually comes out, but it's just kind of a long name and doesn't really roll off the tongue, I feel.
Yeah, it is a bit odd, and the timing is certainly odd as well.
Still, it was kind of a nice surprise. I'm a little bit more optimistic now that we have an actual like target of the maximum missions that Spartan Ops is planning to have. The downloadable marketing strategy seems to be a little bit more aggressive than what we've seen before in Halo games past, especially dealing with downloadable weapons, which we've never had before, and if those are going to be free or not.
Yeah, it's certainly different from what people were expecting, and I think even more so that people were claiming that they were just pushing the Call of Duty style of gameplay onto Halo, and I can certainly see why that is, because they have a system now in multiplayer similar to kill streaks, although instead of kill streaks, it's a weapon drop or a power-up per se, and you can also customize your weapons in this game and have customizable loadouts.
that will be sort of interesting because Halo has always been this sort of paragon of everybody being sort of on an equal playing field, at least when it comes in terms of like equipment and things like that. There were never unlockables that you had to worry about. That was always more of Call of Duty's prestige ranking up kind of system. So are you in favor of this kind of change for this sort of persistent kind of leveling up system, or do you think it's going to ruin everything?
It all depends on how they handle it. They say that they've been doing a lot of internal testing, and while I do think Call of Duty is good, the multiplayer is addictive. It can become questionable as to the balancing of it, simply because some of the kill streaks can greatly tip the favor of one person during the match. And I think as long as they handle this very, very gently, and they make sure that everything is balanced and as it should be, I think they can certainly do this and do it well.
Yeah, it's just if it comes down to I get a kill streak and now I get to call in the gunship or something, I'm going to be like, sorry guys, this is kind of a ripoff.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go to that extreme with any of the drops. It seems they're mostly restricted to 2 weapons, or maybe a speed boost, or maybe overshields.
So you think like weapons are going to be some of the more niche kind of things before, like rocket launchers or Spartan lasers, that kind of thing?
Yes, that's what I think.
Okay. Well, can't wait to find out more details about that too. So coming up next, we've got an article now that was posted on Game Informer and was also an interview on IGN as well, talking about the free-to-play model that Epic has been sort of dabbling in the past 2 years. There was a lot of criticism from this article talking about how the Asian business community has sort of perfected it to this like mirror sheen of being able to do free-to-play MMOs and things like that. But the really surprising thing that I took away from this, in terms of this article, was talking about, let's see, the direct quote here is, the most profitable game we've ever made in terms of man-years invested versus revenue is actually Infinity Blade. It's more profitable than Gears of War. And that just blew my mind.
Well, it certainly seems like more gaming companies seem to be leaning towards the free-to-play model. I mean, we're talking about Mass Effect next, so while on the subject of it, it seems to be that's the way that Mass Effect is going with its multiplayer. All of the DLC seems to be free while you pay for the collector packs. And, I mean, a lot of people seem to enjoy this model. Most of the cosmetic stuff in games you actually have to pay for. However, just to get access to the game, it's completely free.
It'll be interesting to see if we'll start to see more games like that on the PSN and Xbox Live, like being able to download the client absolutely for free, and it's cosmetics and things like that that we end up purchasing. And if that can actually be a successful business model, that's what a lot of game companies are predicting will be the future of gaming, is that we don't go out and buy physical discs anymore for $60. We actually end up paying that money to pimp out whatever character we play the most. So, you can put you can have your gold assault rifle or whatever in Halo 4, and just because that's the game you play so much and you just want to show off like that.
Yeah, that would seem to be the way they would go. And again, it all depends on how they handle it. As long as they don't make it so that you absolutely have to pay to be more powerful than somebody else, I think it could certainly work out well.
Yeah, one of the video articles that I got to see for Extra Credits, which is a great web series everybody should check out, talking about the free-to-play model, is that the ones that succeed the most are the ones that offer the free-to-play, the pay portion for cosmetic items as opposed for purchasing for power. Apparently that's what really turns off the player base the most, the quickest, and I could really believe that it being very discouraging that you have to pay money in order to have the best guns or the best perks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, every game company that's done this free to play model right has either restricted paying money to only things that would affect your character cosmetically, or if they did have other weapons that are questionably more powerful than the starting ones, you can still earn them by playing the game. Just it will take you longer to get them, but if you'd rather get them sooner than later, you can just pay up front and get the weapons instantly.
Things like EXP boosters, things that are already available game, just to quicken things up. It does sort of hone in the sentiment that time is money, and some people don't want to do the grind fest. And if the content is still available for everybody to do, like Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, for example, you can get everything you can just playing games, earning the in-game currency, as opposed to just buying packs for money or Microsoft points or what have you.
Yeah, that would seem to be it. Speaking of which, Mass Effect 3, the multiplayer, they finally decided to change the character cards. Now you no longer get repeated character cards.
Oh, well, that's nice, but then you're going to run out of stuff to buy, I guess, or that'll make the N7 weapons a lot easier to unlock, but I guess that must make you really happy.
Yeah, and they also, they said instead of getting character cards, they added level 4 ammo powers, which I thought was interesting.
I guess that could be a gold slotted kind of thing, and that still something desirable, obviously, to unlock. I'll be happy when I do start playing again, though, not to have to unlock any more Turian Sentinels. It just kills me.
Yeah, they did seem to up the difficulty in multiplayer, though, so it also balances out as to why you would get level 4 ammo.
Cool. Okay, well, since we're moving already organically into the topic as it is, we'll start to get to the real meat of the show today. Talking about Mass Effect 3, probably making one of the biggest splashes this week on the marketplace. The only other two really big things were Dawn Guard for Skyrim, which has been getting pretty positive reviews, and Duels of the Planeswalker for Magic 2013, which is another great sort of buy to go check out for people that are interested in Magic. But let's talk about the extended cut DLC that just came out for Mass Effect 3. So, DJ, why don't you explain to people that have been living under a rock exactly what this DLC entails?
Well, the extended cut DLC is essentially extra cutscenes and dialogue added into Mass Effect 3's ending. I believe it starts right as spoilers, by the way.
You're right. Everybody, I mean, the game's been out for 3 months now. If you're a Mass Effect fan,
well, you said anyone living under a rock. Anyway, so it adds it basically. It starts where Shepard is running towards the beam to head to the Citadel. Essentially, they just add more scenes and dialogue explaining plot holes that a lot of fans were complaining about before, as well as the extra dialogue to explain some things that people were just questioning and had no answer to.
So the endings are obviously really expanded from this, as well as actually adding an actual new ending as well, a fourth ending for away from just the three flavors that we got before. As well, apparently, is affecting the EMS rating for getting the endings. Apparently, it's now lower, which I had just read about. Something, if you wanted to get the best destroy ending now, it's only like 3,100 or something, as opposed to 5K.
Yeah, they made it a lot more accessible for people who do not wish to play multiplayer.
So we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it now, because a lot of websites have. And we can just go in order from when the DLC starts. So the first most noticeable thing has to do with the new running to the beam and clearing out the plot hole that people were wondering about. What happens to my squad mates that are running with me? Now, a lot of people were speculating that the squad mates get killed from, Harbinger's beam, but now that's not the case.
So now they added in an extra scene where if your galactic readiness is high enough, Shepard actually calls in the Normandy to come and pick up your squad.
No, I didn't actually hear about this. If your readiness is too low, they do get killed by the beam?
Yes, they dodge the the Mako that gets flipped over. However, Harbinger fries them with a laser.
Oh, that's actually kind of interesting. I did not know about that one. But so Normandy comes down, and do they quickly sweep up the party members in like a drive-by?
No, it's a little bit of a lengthier conversation than they should have been having. Just my opinion for that time.
No, I agree with you completely. It seemed like this moment in time that hung around forever, that anybody could have shot down this ship that was like, couldn't have been in more than a few miles away from the biggest, baddest reaper of them all, who was cut a swath through who knows how many ships. This should have been easy pickings for Harbinger.
Yeah, it did seem kind of out of place. I was expecting the Normandy to take a shot at Harbinger before landing. I actually had to pause the game while I was doing this, as I just had to take a moment to facepalm. However, Harbinger was basically just sitting there watching you get done with your conversation with your squad, and then as soon as the Normandy flies off, he proceeds to fry you with his laser.
Yeah, so it could be almost argued that this is actually introducing a whole new plot hole into what it just does not make sense for Mass Effect fans, and they'll know that. But when you come away from it, it does put that peace of mind saying that those characters are safe. They're not dead, so you don't have to worry about them.
And they didn't abandon you.
Right. The Joker is still totally your bra. But it is still just the silliest way that they could have done it. So, next part that is modified, which is one that you kept noticing, and I noticed it the first time too, and a few days after, I still cannot make sense of it. Coming out of the beam onto the Citadel, just instead of waking up, we're catapulted out.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty silly, and I just don't understand why they made that change. I'm not upset about it, but I'm just wondering why they decided to do that. Maybe to make it more exciting, or perhaps to show that he's not dreaming, that he actually got flung up there. I have no idea.
Yeah, I can just see like Casey heads in the room. No, what we need more of is Shepard getting flung up. Let's do that. And there's what are the little green guys called? The ones
Keepers.
The keepers. There's a keeper like fiddling with a helmet around the dead bodies. That's supposedly new.
Oh yeah.
We go through the same dialogue with Tim and Anderson, and that all still plays out the same. And then there are a few new scenes interspliced between that and what's going on in space with Admiral Hackett and the Crucible now. His new line is, what is it? Holy shit, he actually did it. Which is just really weird to hear Lance Hendrickson say. And then they also communique talking about, obviously people got onto the Crucible, or got onto the Citadel, so they actually know they can do this Crucible thing. So that's a few new cinematics. And
it is also interesting to note, the scene with Joker is the same, I believe. However, if your galactic readiness isn't high enough, when they're bringing in the Crucible, it shows Admiral Hackett's ship coming under heavy attack.
Interesting. And so then now we get the really meaty part of the new DLC. Instead of just having all of our options presented to us by the Star Child, we now get to ask some questions and get some things clarified. And this is probably one of my favorite parts about the new DLC. One of the two things I'll say. And just to finally get some information, and it's still kind of vague, but it is at the same time pretty satisfying, I'd say. There is a lot of information that you can ask about how the plan started, what happened to the first race that put this whole cycle plan into being.
Yeah, it certainly was pretty satisfying in the sense of it felt like Mass Effect at that point, rather than the original endings where Shepard basically just listened to this kid talk and there wasn't really much dialogue between the two. It was mostly just the kid talking to Shepard. It felt like you were actually investigating, trying to find out some things. I did also laugh at this one part just because it tickled me a little. There's a part when Shepard asks who the kids' creators were, and he said, "You do not know them, and it doesn't matter. They aren't around anymore." I just kind of thought it would have been funny to me. It was like, well, that depends. Do you have $5? It's DLC. I'll tell you all about them if you have the $5.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my wallet got vaporized from that beam, but there's a lot more voice acting put in for the Shepards asking these questions, and what's kind of funny is that it's almost like Shepard talking to himself, because the kid's voice is, or the Star Child is the kid and both Shepards doing really weird sort of modulated stuff, and I can almost hear that a little bit better. I even sort of warmed up to the kid's voice actor just as he was explaining points better. I don't know, it just sounded better to me, I guess. And you can even criticize all the options that are put forth to you by the kid, which is really great. To the point where you can just say, no, not going to do any of this. And then you get the worst ending.
Arguably, yeah. I definitely did enjoy the extra dialogue between Shepard and the kid, and you can even choose to argue with the kid if you want, and he even gets angry with you. And yes, you can refuse the kid all three choices this time, which basically determines that Shepard and the galaxy lose. I thought this was a missed opportunity for them to use the war assets in a meaningful way, in which if your galactic readiness was high enough, you could actually challenge the Reapers and win. That's
nice
just my opinion, but
something ridiculously high, like 10K, even if that was. Maybe there is and nobody's found it, but no, I agree. That's probably not the case, and it would be awesome if it were. But
yeah, and anyone looking for some sort of answers as to why the kid looks the way he does, or why he has been in Shepard's dream, unfortunately, they do not explain that.
Well, there is a little bit of explanation of what the Star Child is talking about. If you probe him on it, he says he's an AI construct that's representative of all the Reapers, and it still sort of comes back to the theory that Star Child is probably just, like I said, as an AI, is probably just representing himself as something that's very familiar to Shepard, like that movie Contact with Sigourney Weaver and her dad or something.
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster. I thought it was Sigourney Weaver. Okay. So once you then get back to the original crux of picking which ending that you want, the other really nice part of this DLC is, explanation with what happens to your crew and what happens to the rest of the galaxy. Some actual closure with not only the people, but the entire races that you cared about. There's a great article up on The Escapist by Susan Arndt talking about how even though that you're saving the galaxy, trying to get races to work together, the choices that you make are, for a lot of people, still concentrated down to these sort of selfish, wanting to see resolution for your characters, and even if that means working through their races. You want to see what happens to Rex if he gets kids. You want to see what happens to Tally and the Legion if they make peace and all that. And it's great to see that.
Yeah, BioWare certainly took notes when listening to people's complaints. They obviously didn't meet everyone's demands. However, the big complaints they certainly did touch on in the DLC. You do get a sense of closure. You do get to see what becomes of your squad, which were, I believe, the two main complaints aside from the plot holes.
Right, exactly. And so I would argue now that this game is just not complete without this extended cut DLC. Fortunately, it's free to download for everybody who has internet, and it's not so much an extended cut as it is an actual retcon with all the new info that you get, the extra scenes as well. You need this to complete the Mass Effect experience, and if you don't want that sour taste in your mouth when you want to go back and start all the way back at the first game, you pretty much need this piece of content.
Yeah, and I certainly do appreciate that BioWare did decide to do this. However, I would say that I think people were probably a little too grateful for it. Not that people and certainly don't appreciate it. However, I would say with BioWare's current situation, they were sort of backed into a corner. Whereas if they did this, they could certainly please a number of people, as opposed to if they didn't do this, they would still have a lot of angry fans and could possibly lose a lot more money in the future.
I agree with you on this completely. This feels like the ending that should have been in the game from the first place, and that the game was, it felt incomplete and way much like a downer without this, and they should have, had all of this ready to go when it shipped, and obviously they didn't. Maybe they were rushed. Can't be entirely sure. We probably won't ever get any actual commenting on this until they're done with all their DLC and they've put Mass Effect 3 to rest. But this is probably about the best thing that they could have done with the cards that they dealt themselves, essentially.
Yeah, and although there are people that still do not like the endings simply because they didn't like them to begin with, for example, the Star Kid, I think basically everyone can agree that although it's not everything they wanted, it is certainly an improvement to the original endings.
Absolutely. So I think that pretty much covers our endorsement, I'd say, for getting this absolutely free piece of DLC. So let's talk about what's on the future horizon with a little bit of interesting news on what might have been a leak discovered. I think it was actually in the game files for the extended cut, referring to what could possibly be the first story piece of DLC outside of the launch DLC that was from Ashes. And this has to do with what people are calling the Leviathan DLC, I guess. Why don't you go in a little bit more on this?
So this DLC that few people found basically details side missions, supposedly. People aren't sure if this takes place after the ending or during the main game. However, it talks about a Reaper that the Batarians found in the DIS system, and they accidentally reactivated it, and it ended up indoctrinating a lot of Batarian scientists. Balak mentions this. If you had the
Bring Down the
Sky DLC from the first game and have talked to him in the third game, it's pretty interesting because supposedly this Reaper is a rogue Reaper.
Right. Something apparently. There's a quote here people find in the game. So Reaper goes rogue and kills one of its own. That's what we're looking at here, right? And some people are also speculating that this may have actually been a scrap mission at some point that was in game, or that they didn't want to do. But I'm pretty sure there's been mention before of this Reaper of the Leviathan somewhere in the expanded universe of Mass Effect, in terms of somewhere on the wiki or something like that. But it certainly is an interesting concept, a Reaper that is not in tune with the rest of the Reapers, and if it can be an asset or if it's even more dangerous that it's completely rogue. I would seriously doubt that this would be post-game DLC. My guess is that it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, people have been speculating quite a bit as to when this takes place. My guess is it would take place before the end. People have even been speculating that possibly if this Reaper is a war asset, that you can actually choose to refuse the Godchild's all three of its choices and even win against the Reapers. Again, I highly doubt this is the case, that BioWare would be changing their ending yet again. But I guess some people are just very, very upset to the point where they still can't accept the new endings, which is understandable.
I guess, but it would be pretty weird to see a whole another alternate ending come from it. My hope is to introduce some of the multiplayer weapons that were put into the single-player game, because a lot of them are really great. I want to try out the Cerberus Harrier and stuff like that in the single player, or add some new bonus powers, or just some new story stuff. All the DLC that was in Mass Effect 2 for story stuff was fantastic, and if they get, a whole nother layer of the Shadow Broker, it would be awesome.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And I think most people that have played Mass Effect 2's DLCs would certainly want to see more single-player DLC.
Absolutely. All right, so those were the big news stories for this week in gaming. Thanks, DJ, for giving me a hand with this. Hope to do some more of these in the future.
Yep.
All right, and we don't have a really witty sign-off yet, so until next time, this is Kevin Harrison. And this is the part where you say your name.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm DJ. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Okay, and we'll see you guys next time.